Here we arrive at an enduring truism concerning old technology. The technology itself becomes exponentially more and more irrelevant as it is superseded by better ideas. But the way these things look becomes ever more important because they form a part of the history of art and design, and the aesthetic is ultimately triumphant. Pretty soon the dance set will, in accordance with the musings of Ovid, become a true objet because it will have absolutely no utility. It will simply be something pleasing to look at. And yet, if the dance set's makers had been blessed with some sort of preemptive 21st century sense of history, they would have mounted it in a transparent box. It would have to be a transparent box mounted on very long legs, so you could sit underneath it, but that way you could watch the mechanism, all of which is hidden away underneath the turntable, and which is, to use a word that hadn't entered youth argot at the time, epic. Looking from above, here's what you get. On the left is one lever to set the record speed. The 45 RPM and 33 RPM speeds are the most commonly used, for 7-inch singles and 12-inch LPs respectively. There is also a 78 RPM setting, so that Grandpa could still listen to his Vera Lynn records, and 16 RPM for reasons that are a great mystery. No one I've ever met has even seen a 16 RPM record. An RPM of 16 means that the linear speed of the groove is too slow for decent music reproduction, so 16 RPM records were usually for recorded speech. At least they lasted a decent amount of time going that slowly, but no one has ever actually seen one. One rumour has it they're 10 inches in diameter. On the right is another lever. Its positions are off, man for manual, plus on, and reg for reject. The spring-loaded reg position will indeed reject a record mid-play if, for example, its steli spans all around my hat. But more importantly, it starts the automatic drop and play process. Here's where it becomes impressive. The central pin of the player will take up to 8 records if they're 7-inch singles, but can accommodate a mixture. A record plays, the arm automatically lifts and returns to the right, the next record drops, and the process starts again, until there are no records left. A small curved quadrant on a post is wiped by the descending disc, so the machine knows what size it is and where to place the stylus. So what, I hear you cry, almost as one. So what indeed, if this were a modern appliance, the position of the record's edge established by a small laser, the movement of the arm controlled to within tiny fractions of a degree by miniature stepper motors, the whole managed by an infinitely reprogrammable microprocessor. But this thing is entirely mechanical. When the dance set was designed in the 1950s, no one could anticipate the rise of electronic controls, especially digital ones. This was an era when many people still thought that fluidics would be the future of machine management. Meanwhile, mechanics were how things were generally done. It becomes quite clear when looking at the innards of the dance set that they owe something to the workings of complex mechanical clocks with chiming mechanisms, date displays, and so on. So there must be a debt here to the exiled Huguenot clockmakers of France, John Harrison, James Watt, and everyone else who added to the greater understanding of what Charles Babbage called mechanical agency. But in fact, it's even better than that. A bit more thought reveals the workings to be a clever combination of the 6 simple machines identified by Renaissance scholars as the basis of all mechanisms, however complex in their entirety. These are the lever, the pulley, the screw, the wheel and axle, the incline plane, and the wedge. This thinking was in turn based on the writings of antiquity, it being the Renaissance. So, when you fumble around in the workings of the dance set, you reach out with your forefinger and touch the beard of Archimedes himself, the bloke who said he could move the world with a lever, if only there was somewhere for him to stand. I find this quite amazing, because all of those principles of mechanical advantage are still absolutely correct, and have served humanity unaided for so many hundreds of years. And here they are, in a portable record player that looks a bit like a Buick. Watch it go, if you can find a way of doing it. Watch the arm drift around robotically, the records drop, the springs, cams and levers of its mysterious underbelly whir and clunk into place to bring you the sweet muse of terpsichore. How the hell did they work that out? Meanwhile, the Dan set and its ilk are celebrated for the usual rather...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.